Welcome to another fantastic episode of Rock the Crown. I am your host, Nafisa Fudaya, and of course, you know I have to have another queen with me. Yes, Miss Daia is here.
What's up, Crown Nation? Another episode. Good to be here with you all.
Yes, we are so excited. And of course, our other queens had some previous engagements, so they couldn't join us, but I'm sure they are here in spirit with us today as we are rounding out the towards the end of this season for Rock the Crown, as well as towards the end of this year of 2021. And everybody is trying to focus on, revisiting what they said they wanted to accomplish for 2021, and as well as think about what goals and what things they want to accomplish coming forward in 2022. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, the money. Yes, Crown Nation, we're going to talk about wealth building today because I'm a firm believer in that. We need to build wealth. People are talking about generational wealth. I'm talking about building wealth right now. Okay. As well as, we want to leave, of course, our grandchildren or our great grandchildren and great children something. But we also want to talk about how do we realistically and practically put that in place and what does that mean. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Our episode entitled Money and Wealth Building, Getting Access to Your Best Life. Because we believe money is the doorway to a lot of options. Doorway to a lot of options. We got to think about this since we live in here in America. So, as a guide for where we're gonna go today, we want to talk about. We're gonna hit on four main areas. We're gonna talk about what is your target. What's your target goal and how much money you want to make in your lifetime in the next few years. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about what's your freedom number. You might say, Nafisa, what's your freedom number? We're going to talk a little bit about what that number is and what it means. Okay. We want to talk about the types of income. We want to make sure that you know that there are different types of income so that you make sure that you're focused on the one that's going to generate and work for you. And then we want to talk about the different vehicles that you can use to not only make money, but protect your money. So we're going to get started with that. All right, Daia?
Right, I am ready.
So at first, we want to talk about what's your target, right? And the reason why I say this is because two things. Number one, the famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of Stephen Covey's habits says, begin with the end in mind, right? We always want to know what the destination is because if you don't know, you lost. If you don't know where you're supposed to be. So we want to talk about that when you talk about setting a target for money and an actual target number, not just a lot of money, not just 1 million, not just, what is the number and what is the time frame for the number. And then, kind of break that down. Like I want to give an example too that you got to consider. Some people say, okay, well, I want to make $1 million. Right, Daya? You hear that all the time. Oh, let's be millionaires. I want to make $1 million. But what's the time frame for that? Is that in your lifetime you want to make $1 million? And is that gross or is that after taxes? Because most of us who have a paycheck, or those of us who have had a paycheck, we know what we make and what you bring home. It ain't the same thing. So you got to clarify that, says you got to be specific. You want to make $1 million before taxes, after taxes. You want to make $1 million in 20 years, in 10 years, 5 years. And then you want to further break that down, how much does that break down per year? And then how much does that break down per month? And then how much does that break down per week? So those are some of the things you want to think about when you're actually thinking about a number. The more specific you can be, the better it is. And keep in mind that taxes, when you talk about social security tax, federal taxes, state taxes, and we're not even talking about sales tax, property taxes,
Mhm.
all of those, generally, if you added up all of those, they're usually eating up in between 30 and 40%. Okay, so if you're talking about $1 million gross, right, and 40% of that is going to be eaten up by taxes, that means you really, that's only 600,000.
Mhm.
You're starting at 600,000. So think about it and kind of plan about it like that. How do you think about that, Dia?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think about, our goals of, how we want to make money and wealth building. And it does start with a goal. It is as simple as that. It starts with you making a goal. And of course, like you mentioned, you want your goal to be what we call it SMART goal, right? So you want
Mm-hmm.
it to be you want your SMART goals to be where they are specific. So, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you want to be able to say, I want to make X amount of money in the next 30 days, the next year, the next 5 years, 10 years. You want that to be measurable, which means you're going to have to be keeping up with what you make. A lot of times when I have bookkeeping clients, I'll ask them, so how much did you make this year?
Mm-hmm.
There's a puzzled look on their face like, oh well, especially our business owners, because
Mm-hmm.
we're so busy in the day-to-day operations that we're not really tracking exactly what we're making. So very important that you have a way that you're measuring those goals, and then
Mm-hmm.
you want those goals to be achievable. So let's not say I want to make $1 million next year, and right now you're currently sitting at 40,000. So how are you going to make that huge jump? There has
Mm-hmm.
to be something that's going to happen. So you want it to be something that's achievable. And then you also want something that's going to be relevant or realistic. I like to use realistic, as far as achievable. And then
Mm-hmm.
you want to have a time on it. You want to put a time limit on it. So this way you have something that you're working towards. So definitely you want to have that target. And the last thing I'll say is it's good to also start with thinking about your lifestyle. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
type of lifestyle do I want to live? Your
Right.
lifestyle may not require that you make $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Your lifestyle, your ideal lifestyle may only require that you're making 200,000, 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
So just really start with that. Start with thinking about, how do I want to live? You want to be able to take trips. You want to be able to, only work 3 days a week. How do you want to live? And then start from there and then figure out how much money you need to, to live that particular lifestyle.
Right. And then also too, they have a lot of tools out there, financial tools out there and apps on your phone that you can link to your bank account that to keep track of all your expenses and where your money is going and stuff like that, because uh, you have to keep track too of how much money is coming in, but also how much money is going out. And I know people talk about a budget and some people cringe at a budget. I'm not one of those people who believe that you have to be so focused on, every single penny that goes out, but you need to have a very good handle on what is going out so that oh, am I being wasteful? Is this something, so that you're actually making a conscious decision about where your money is going. And, it just makes you more conscious. Another thing too, you want to kind of set up your environment. If you don't just sit down or have a book and write it down and say, I want to make $1 million or 500,000 or whatever it is. And then you write it down in the book and then you close it up and that's it. You want to set up your environment. So like every morning you wake up, you're looking at that, whether it's notes on your phone. You want to maybe make posters or have flyers and have them, sticking out. So every time, especially with us being remote, a lot of people working remotely, maybe you have it sticking on your wall right in front of your computer. So every time you looking up there, okay, yeah, or whatever, if that breaks down to 2,500 for the week or whatever, okay, you need to be looking at that. Go, okay, that's 2,500. Okay, where am I at? Where am I at right now? So those are some just different ideas. Not just only write it down or type it up and have it sitting on your hard drive, but you also want to make sure that you incorporate that into your daily habits of acknowledging that, looking at it, and then setting up your environment. Next thing we want to talk about is what is your freedom number, right?
Mhm.
And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because a lot of people think about, how much money they want to make, but then maybe they're constrained by their current job on how much they can make, or maybe they like their job, but they're constrained. Their job constrains them in terms of time because they have to spend so much time on their job. They don't necessarily have the time to really put in to generate a lot of other income to reach whatever that number is. So when I like to say, what's your freedom number? If you left your job, how much money would you need to make in order to leave your job?
Mhm.
That's what I say your freedom number. And even if you don't want to leave your job, how much money do you need to make to feel comfortable if you wanted to leave your job? You
Mhm.
could. So what is that number? If you're making $80,000, if that's your salary, you may not need to make that much in terms of actually leaving, because that number entails a lot, right? So in terms of stuff that you can't even write off because you're an employee versus being a business owner. So maybe your freedom number is only $60,000. If you started a business or something where you're generating $60,000 a year, that in a business, that may be enough for you to be like, you know what? Okay, cool. That's equivalent to what my job is. I'm leaving my job. So
Mhm.
if that's what you want to do, or how much money do I need to make on a regular basis? Maybe it's $60,000 for you to feel comfortable to and still stay at your job. But if you needed to leave for whatever reason, you could. So that's what I say your freedom number is. And that's something to think about and write that down and see what that is. Because a lot of times that's a lot less than your $1 million goal or 500,000 or 250,000 of goals. That's a lot less. And that may give you more freedom to pursue more money making opportunities to get to that ultimate goal that you're trying to get to. So I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah, I also want to, in terms of freedom, not only is it freedom from your job, it could also be some freedom, if you're an entrepreneur. So let's talk
Mhm.
about some freedom freeing you up so that you can actually hire someone to be your project manager or hire someone to do what you're doing in your job. That could also be a number that you're looking at. I have one of my clients where he's working a contracting business, and he is really, really getting to the point, he's getting older and he's tired of having to sit and really crunch those numbers and do those projects. And I said, well, how much would it take for you to, to make, how much money would you need in order to pay for someone, to hire someone to do what you do? So now you can
Right.
come back and oversee your business or oversee your businesses, and move on to something different. Because sometimes we kind of get burnt out with our business. We kind of reach that point where, okay, it's kind of working on its own. I'm ready to do something different. I'm ready to get into some real estate. I'm ready to get into this. But sometimes we find that even our businesses we can put shackles on ourselves with our businesses. So being able to have that freedom number where you're able to say, okay, once I've saved that 80,000 or what have you, I'm going to go ahead and hire this person so I can move on and do something different. So that's another way to look at it for my business owners, as far as that freedom number. What would that number be for you to be able to get the help and get the hire the people that you need to be able to run your business for you, and you be more so in an oversee type of position. So that's something to think about as well.
Right. And that kind of leads us to Dia into when we talk about the types of income, right? When you talk about the types of income, because you can earn, you got different ways to look at it, right? So most people are familiar with the, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and whatever you think of him, a lot of his stuff is mathematically sound. Okay. So whatever, you think of him, let's just deal with the truth of the matter of some of his concepts. And one of them is the cash flow quadrant, which basically says what type of money are you bringing in? And most people generally, the one that they're most familiar with is usually as an employee. In other words, you have a job, that's your earned income. Unless you go to work, you don't have any money coming in. Okay, so that would be an employee. And the other type is you're self-employed. So you have a business, you work for yourself, but you basically you own your own job. You just created a job for yourself.
Mhm.
You don't have any
Right.
employees or anything like that. That's called being self-employed. That's still earned income. Again, if you don't generate any income in that business, you're not
Mhm.
going to eat, right?
Mhm.
And then the other one is where you actually have a business with employees and systems that are operating, right? So you own the business, you own the systems, and you have employees that are helping you to generate that particular income that is coming in. So maybe if you don't show up, you still got some employees that's going to be able to continue the systems that you set up to be able to generate money, right? And then the fourth one, which is the best one, is investing, right? So, and this generally deals with what they call passive income. In other words, you have put your money to work for you. So, regardless if you're sleeping, if you didn't go into work that day, you still have either investments or assets that you have bought with your money that are generating more money and more cash flow. And Warren Buffett said the best thing is to move from earn income to passive income. So when your passive income exceeds your earned income, then you can start to relax, right? Because if heaven forbid, if you get an accident, if you get laid off, a lot of people might have experienced through the pandemic where they just didn't have any work or their business shut down. Well, if you got passive income, it's operating irregardless of whether things shut down or not, right? It's still coming in because your assets are still generating that. So that's another thing when you trying to strategize your goals and how much money you want. You want to say what break it down into what type of income that you really want to get to eventually. And of course, the goal is going to be passive income, which can be generated different types of vehicles,
Mhm.
right? So they can be generated different types of ways, from if you wrote a book, right? You just do that one time. And if you sell that book, every time you sell that book, it generates royalties or it generates income for you. So if you put it on Amazon, you might have did some little marketing or something at the beginning or put it on Audible, right? Then every time that book sells, whether you sleep or not, it's generating income for you. The same thing with music, the same thing with those are like royalties, but other areas, well, which we're going to talk about different vehicles for generating real estate. But I just wanted to give you an example when I say passive income. That's one of the things that I mean. Also, if you own stocks or investments, you got 401k or mutual funds, and they're pushing out dividends, those dividends are being generated, right? Whether you're doing something or not, because you have already invested money in assets that are generating that type of income. So
Mhm.
just keep that in mind to distinguish the types of assets as well. And then the last thing that we want to talk about, Daia, is we want to talk about some of the 10 things that you want to make sure that you have in your wealth building arsenal. The 10 things. What's the first? You want to talk about the first one, Daia?
Okay, sure, because that's where I'm passionate about, very passionate about land and real estate. So these are both, very excellent tools for building wealth. You can buy a house this year, and then, 2 to 5 to 10 years later, that house is going to appreciate. So just by the house, just, the values around the house, it's going to add more value. So that's, one way that you're able to do it. And also, of course, you can buy and then sell. So if you buy, land or buy, a property, and then, 2 years later it appreciates, you can sell it. And then that's the profit that you'll be making off of it. So those are very, very, very excellent sources. Most of the richest people of the world, they always have, this one, they always have some type of investments in land and in real estate. So that I think that's why it's listed at number one. So are we talking about that first? Because that's one thing. And it's very easy to get into. Even when you're buying your first home, that's an investment. Even though you're going to live there, but you're buying your first home and that's your investment. That's why when I purchased the home that I purchased 1 year ago, I stopped looking for dream home. I said, this is just the first home that I'm going to purchase. Okay. So I said, I'm not going to go and make sure it has, all 10 of the things that I want or 20 of the things
Mhm.
that I want in it. This is the first home. And, after a while, once I grow and my family grows, then I'll, leave that, rent it out or sell it, so it's just a tool. It's a wonderful tool to be able to build wealth.
Right. And there's so many different ways to use real estate as a tool too. So, which Dia talked about, the different some of the different ways, but make no mistake about it that it needs to be in your arsenal and a major part of it. And just to give you an idea, she talked about, rich people always have it as part of their portfolio. I think it was last year or the year before. No, last year, I think they came out and said that Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos of Amazon were buying thousands and thousands of acres of land. They were just buying thousands of acres in all these different locations, and they talked about them going on basically a buying spree to buy up all this land, and all that is about future. It's about future. So don't just think about, oh, if you think, oh, well, I already have my home and I just have already, one real estate thing. Think about bigger than that, investing also land for the long term, for maybe generations to come. That is huge, right? So the other second way that you can generate that you want to have part of your wealth building portfolio is stocks, right? And when we talk about stocks, all stocks is that you put some type of investment in a company, right? And then you get, they say you get a little certificate or whatever, but it's probably electronic, nowadays. Right?
Mhm.
But the point of it is you're investing in a company. So whether you're investing in Coca-Cola, whether you're investing in Pepsi, Tesla, you have these public companies that you're investing in, but you also can invest in what they call closely held companies. In other words, they're not publicly listed on the stock exchange or whatever, but you still can get a stock in that particular company. It's just not publicly listed on the New York Stock Exchange or whatever, but it's still called stock if it's a corporation. So that is investing in companies that you believe in, whether you do that individually, you going out and individually going on TD Ameritrade or whatever, and you say, I want to buy, 10 shares of Apple stock or whatever, or every time you get paid, you want to buy so many shares. People also invest through mutual funds. Most people are familiar with investing in stocks through their 401ks or their IRAs. So those are different vehicles too, the tax deferred vehicles that you can use to invest in stocks. But whatever way that you do it, just understand that in terms of building wealth over the long term, right? Because you're betting on that the value of that stock increasing in value over the long term. So that's called appreciation. But you also invest in some companies and buy stock because you want the dividend that that company um, pays out, and most pay out, on a quarterly basis. So those are things just to keep in mind. But you want to have stock as one of your things for wealth building for the long term. And another is, which we don't think about a lot, is precious metals.
Mhm.
When you talk about gold and you talk about diamonds and silver and all that, most people don't think about that too much nowadays because a lot of other stuff has gotten the hype. But gold has stood the test of time. Gold has stood the test of time, and a lot of precious metals and things of that nature has stood the test of time. So it is something that you want to have in your arsenal of wealth building to be able to diversify your portfolio in terms of that. Number three, my favorite topic,
What's that?
cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Yes, you know that's my favorite topic. You got to have you some crypto for
Mm.
these new portfolios. Nowadays, you have to have that. I mean, it is such a fantastic wealth building vehicle that really levels the playing field for a lot of people. And you can grow your money with just a little bit. You can get started, just a little bit. You can get started and get started. So I would encourage everyone to get educated about it. They have videos on YouTube that anybody can look at, right? And always do your due diligence. Follow verifiable sources. I myself have a segment that I do every Monday called New Money Mondays, and that's all I talk about is crypto. So you can view, some of my past episodes. I've been doing it all year, every Monday, and it's a again a great vehicle for you to be able to invest in for the long term. And then for those who may be interested in trading to generate income on a daily basis or weekly basis, that it's a great vehicle to do that as well. So those two ways that you can generate money using cryptocurrency, you definitely want to have it in your arsenal because it is definitely becoming more and more commonplace and mainstream in the future. The fifth one, you want to talk about that, Dia?
I sure do. So the fifth one is another category of building wealth, and this one is life insurance. So very, very important. A lot of times we think life insurance, we just think of like a burial policy, right? You just think, okay, just enough to bury me. But also, a life insurance policy can also be a way of you passing down wealth to your children, wealth to your grandchildren. You can get a policy, that would also not only passing down wealth, but also, helping your children with any debt that you may have incurred. So you always want to make sure that your life insurance would cover, maybe your house. So this way you can leave your children the family home. But yeah, life insurance is a wonderful way to build wealth, and you want to have it on your family members, yourself, so that in the event that something happens, to your parents, you are able to, also, pass that down. That's how a lot of millionaires today, they became millionaires because they have received some type of inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things that we're talking about can be passed down. That's another thing, is that land can be passed down to your family, stocks,
Mm-hmm.
precious metals, crypto, and life insurance. So all of this is all going into your estate. So you're putting all of this, you're building this wealth, and you're going to be able to leave all of these items to your family, should you pass away, when you pass away, I should
Right.
say.
Because it's inevitable, right?
It will.
They said death and taxes are certainty.
Yes.
Right. And then the sixth one is owning an LLC. And we put this on here because, particularly here in America, you got to think about what systems are in place in this economy and how the systems were built and who they were built to benefit.
Mhm.
And remember earlier I told you about about taxes, right? Well, if you own your own LLC, the tax code was meant to benefit businesses, right? So those who have businesses for them are going to pay the least amount of taxes when you talk about tax rates. Okay. So when you have your own LLC and you're operating something that you're doing, you're able to write off a lot more expenses that you could not write off if you were an employee. So you want to keep that in mind. Owning an LLC is a vehicle for you to be able to do that, right? So even if you're doing stuff on a contract basis for someone else, you still want to have an LLC to be able to um, have your money and expenses go through that so that you are able to reduce your overall tax rate with your LLC. So that's definitely a benefit um, to owning it, to use as a wealth building tool to reduce your taxes so that you're able to keep more of your money so that you can put it to work and have more money working for you.
Mhm.
So that's a vehicle there. We talked a little bit in one of our shows when we talk about 7 and 8 here. We talked about, we had an episode on Are You Ready to Die? Where we dived into estate planning in trust. So we're not going to talk up heavily on that, but just understand that when you talk about wealth building, you want to make sure that you look at your wills and your trust and estate plan as a means to protect what you have built your life building up, right? So you want to make sure that you do that. And look at one of our former episodes. I think it was maybe 2 episodes, and I gave you some actual tools to be able to do that on even on your own. But that's definitely 2 vehicles that you definitely want to use to be able to protect the wealth and assets that you are building up. And the ninth one is produce an essential product or service.
Mhm.
Most wealthy people own some type of business where they had some type of product or service that they sold. That's just a fact, right? And everybody didn't start with a lot of money. Most people just started with an idea, a small thing that they eventually grew into something big over time. And I wanted to give you a quote too. Um, Even when you talk about setting your goals, Bill Gates said that most people, the majority of people, overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years.
Mhm.
Right? So everybody want to start out, saying, "Oh, I want to make $1 million next year." They're overestimating, and like Dia said, but you're only making 40,000 now, and you haven't even started any type of side hustle or anything like that to generate that. So you overestimating what you can accomplish in 1 year, but you're underestimating what you can accomplish in 10. Because maybe you won't earn $1 million next year, but in 10 years, maybe you will earn $10 million, right?
Mhm.
And you're not really thinking about it like that because we're so focused on, what can I do right now? What can I do right now? So keep that in mind when you're talking about that, but definitely have a product or service if you're talking about building a large wealth portfolio. You want to definitely have some type of product or service to add to your portfolio mix of generating wealth. And if you examine most of the wealthy people, they generally have that. And the final thing, number 10, that you want to have is what, Dia?
Education, training, and learning. So, a product, is that where you're passing down your knowledge? What are
Yeah,
you?
passing down your knowledge and just investing in you learning and being educated about wealth building.
Mhm.
People talk about financial literacy, and that's a big thing. Even in a lot of companies now, as one of the benefits, they have like these lunch and learns where somebody will come in and talk about something related to financial literacy or whatever, like as a benefit for their employees. So just making sure that you are continuously educating yourself about what's going on with your investments, what's going on in terms of being open to opportunities out there, learning about, different vehicles that you might want to get in. Maybe you focus on 2021, you focus all on real estate and you get into learning all about that and what that means. And then 2023, you get all into crypto, learning about what that is. But really at the end of the day, it's just really about making sure that you as part of your wealth building strategy, that you have education and learning as a part of that. And not only that, but you can have teaching as a part of that,
Mhm.
because a lot of the new millionaires nowadays, a lot of them have some type of a course or workshop or
Mhm.
seminar or
Mhm.
webinar.
Mhm.
Once they learn how to do something, then they start teaching other people how to do that and then use that as a money generating vehicle as well. So that's something else to keep in mind. You don't want to do all these 10 things all at the same time, right? You don't want to do all these 10 things all at the same time. Some of them take inventory. How many do you currently already do? You
Mhm.
know, like I currently do, I think about six. I think I have six, maybe seven on here that I currently do. They're not all at the same level, right? So maybe you take inventory of these 10 things. What do I already do? Okay. And then say, okay, well, which ones do I see the most potential in that I can grow, the quickest, and focus on that. And then once you get that stabilized, then you start learning and bringing in another one that you want to use. So that kind of would be my advice on there. But you do want to make sure that you have your will and possibly a trust in place as protection. Make sure you have that as a priority, just to get started. Yeah. You got any closing remarks before we?
I just want to say, as we move into this new year, be sure that take some time, take a moment to sit with a pen and a pad and really try to figure out what you want to do, as far as building your wealth, and really do it with yourself and your family in mind, both, even generations, we really need to, change our mindset to not only thinking about ourselves and our immediate family, but thinking about, the young ones that we're, going to bring, that will come after us. So yeah, so happy, may the new year be bright and cheerful for everyone and prosperous, and I hope that these tips will help us, as we, move into the new year.
Right. And so we would just want to say thank you for joining us. We also just want to make sure that we keep the right mindset about wealth. Wealth again, it's a doorway, right? And you have to use all the your intelligence and your productive capabilities to be able to maximize and actualize your potential as an individual, and then that your people around you, and then your community. Really, wealth building is really an obligation because we've been entrusted with this creation. And so we want to make sure that we strive to maximize what we can maximize ourselves, the influence that we have over others, and our contribution to the community and to the world. It's an obligation that we're going to be held accountable for. So definitely we want to use wealth as a tool to be able to maximize that. So we want to thank you for joining us on another episode of Rock the Crowd. Till next time, peace.